Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to a special series we have within our podcast. This is the Personal Brand Summit series, which is part of the Branding Your Business podcast. Again, my name is Praise Santos McKenna. I am the founder of the branding studio Complum, which is based in San Francisco, California. And I have a fellow Bay Area resident with me. She is a savvy woman who happens to also be a LinkedIn expert. So let me tell you a bit about my friend Trish. As a child, Trish was immersed in two seemingly different worlds, reading fashion magazines, hey, same here, and watching sci-fi movies. Growing up as an immigrant from Jamaica, her parents instilled in her the values of perseverance and dreaming big. Their entrepreneurial spirits laid the foundations for her fearless pursuit of her dreams. Thank you, Trish's parents. Trish developed the power of storytelling through her vast career in media and tech at, you might have heard of these places, CNN, Yahoo, Oprah, BuzzFeed, and LinkedIn. Her journey has been guided by the mantra, when it comes to achieving your goals, dream bigger. Sister, like as a fellow child of immigrants, it's like hard to explain to people of like, no, we have to make it. Like our parents did so much for us here. We have to make it, which can come with its own weight and burden too. But I also see you and I get you. And I imagine your parents are just so proud of you and all that you've accomplished, both as a professional, but who you've become as a person. So thank you much for sharing a bit of your story and being here with us today.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for having me, Praise. And yes, I'm going to call my parents after this and find out how much they're proud of me. I'm definitely going to ask them about that.
And
Um,
I'm recording this, Mom and Dad. Please tell me on a scale of 1 to 10.
but yeah, they do share that they're proud of me and everything like that. So, but yeah, it's always nice to have that validation from your parents. So it's really sweet.
For those who've gone before us, I've been holding on to the mantra that my friends who are becoming parents, they say that their ceiling is now their child's floor. Like what they
Mhm.
taught was their very top is now where their children, that's like the base of where they stand. And so it's a wild to think of all the generations who've come before us, what they've done for us to be able to have like cool conversations like this, things that we get to offer free to our community to really build people up. And you especially work so much with women and women of color to build them up. So can you brag a little bit about this platform you've created and a little bit of how you spend your week and your time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a company and a brand called Too Ambitious, and that's spelled TOO, which as of late, people have been asking me, is it two like TWO or T? And so I've never thought about that, but it's TOO. But yeah, so what I do is I work with women, specifically women of color. I basically help them to leverage their thought leadership across social media, specifically LinkedIn, some IG as well. It just sort of depends. But I use my platform to empower women, to support women, and have conversations with women that they don't ordinarily get a chance to have, especially when we think of mainstream media. I think that sometimes media kind of perpetuates a scarcity sort of environment, that there's not enough room for all of us to be great and successful. There can only be one of us at the top at a time. But my thing is that there's plenty of room for all of us to celebrate each other and support each other and uplift each other. And sometimes it's in very, very small ways, showing up to a podcast or, buying a book or coming to an event, to support each other. And I think that sometimes we forget that those things really matter, especially when you are still trying to figure it out. You don't have all the answers, but to know that you have this amazing community of other women who look like you or share similar experiences, really sort of helps you to kind of keep going further.
Yeah, I feel like we can't be what we can't see. Once we start other people who we can see ourselves in doing it too, it makes it less scary. And it also doesn't have to be, we talk a lot about strategy here. You can have a 5 year strategy. Like if you want to create that, go for it. But it's also in these smaller acts of kindness and generosity and sharing that you can build that thought leadership. What we're saying a lot here during the Personal Brand Summit it's thought leadership, but also us thinking about a thought servant leadership, because right
Yes.
now you are exemplifying that so well. You are giving generously to our people who are listening in, because we don't want people to make mistakes when they don't have to make mistakes. We don't want
Right.
people to have a headache when they don't need to have a headache, because there's a lot more simple ways that people have figured out, and it takes us to be able to share it and give it. And once we see other people doing the same, everyone gets uplifted. And I love that you focus especially on women and women of color. And I love that we have you here as part of the summit. Like,
Yeah.
your voice is so needed. Tell us a little bit about your journey with LinkedIn. I feel like it's been such an interesting turn of events in the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Yeah, so I was at LinkedIn for 2.5 years as a senior community manager. And during that time, I was responsible for working with women of color, Black women entrepreneurs on the platform. So my whole role was to help them to build their thought leadership, give them the tools and resources that they need to thrive across the platform. And so I had like over 100 women in my cohort across the country. I actually had a couple that were in Europe as well. But it was basically a time where I didn't really think that this was the path that I was supposed to be on. It just sort of happened. And it was something that I would say turned into a very sweet surprise. If you would have told me that I would have been championing women of color entrepreneurs on LinkedIn, I'd be like, what? Like, no, that makes no sense. But if I'm being honest with myself and sort of looking at the full scope of my career and my life, that's something that's always been important to me is supporting other women and supporting their endeavors. And I have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs and I support them. You know, I reshare on Instagram. I'm like, hey, I got you, that sort of thing is just basically a lot of it is showing. So one of the things that I was really surprised by was how it made me feel as well, talking to these women. Always left very inspired and just rejuvenated. And, it also made me think that I could do something amazing as well, because I think sometimes, again, we can talk ourselves out of our own greatness. We really can, you know, and we have to realize when that greatness is there, recognize it and pursue it, fearlessly. So for me, yes, I'm supporting other women, but they're giving me so much more because I'm being inspired every time I talk to a woman who's doing her own thing, who's taken a risk, who is challenging herself to be great. That inspires me to keep going because it's not easy. It's not easy, but they don't even, a lot of these women don't even know how much they've given back to me. And so that's what I've enjoyed the most.
I have to mute myself when our guests are talking, because I'm always just like, and people are watching probably my body language in the background. When you said we're often afraid of our own greatness, shook. I am shook. And that is one of the biggest things I've seen. There's so many women who have ideas, who have wisdom to share, and are afraid of what you said, just showing up. I get it. It's a vulnerable, it's scary. But what inspiration are people missing out on because you're not showing up? What is the world missing out on because we are holding ourselves back? And so
Huh?
it is a service for women to share their inspiring stories. It is a service to share their experiences too. And it has this ripple effect because, look, it inspired you to
Yes.
do the same, which is incredible and it's amazing. And I now know women are like, okay, you convinced me. Like, I'm listening to this. I'm part of the summit. Show, like, how do I do it? What do I do? And I'm like, okay, let's just talk about this platform first too. LinkedIn has been around for a while now. Can you talk about a
Yeah.
little bit how kind of the norms and the culture of LinkedIn has evolved?
Yeah, for sure. LinkedIn is a platform that if you are a professional and if you have been looking for a job at any point in your career, you probably hopped on LinkedIn and was like, well, I gotta get on LinkedIn and I've gotta make sure that my profile is up to date and I can connect potentially with a recruiter. Great. Well, that's still the case. However, LinkedIn has evolved and a lot of it changed during the pandemic. And so people were showing up on the platform and sharing a lot of their stories. A lot of us were working from home. A lot of parents were taking care of their children while working, navigating, the experience of running a household, living in a bubble in a sense, while still working a 9 to 5 job. So people got real on LinkedIn, and they started sharing their stories. So that's basically what you see LinkedIn now is what it's become. I mean, I know they hate the social media aspect of it. It is another social platform, a professional social platform. So I tell people now, you should be sharing your stories on LinkedIn. A lot of people say, oh, it's like Facebook, but for professionals. I disagree. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's Facebook. I think it's it has its own lane because what LinkedIn wants you to do is to share your thought leadership, share your expertise, talk about what and whether it be CPA, whether it's a lawyer, whether you are an entrepreneur, venture capital, whatever the case may be for you, they want this platform to be a knowledge sharing platform. So utilize it as that. And when you think about sharing your thought leadership, a lot of people get a little bit confused because they're like, I don't really know like what the heck that means. Like, what am I supposed to be saying? Well, I'm here to tell you, really personal branding is about you and your thoughts, your experiences, your knowledge, all of that sort of coming together under a nice package and that you share out into the world, right? So if you think about what is it that people say the most about you that you're good at, or the things that you talk about. Now, I will say that none of us are monoliths. Like we all have different things that we're interested in. And you can share that. I'm that person as well. I have a lot of things that I'm interested in, but the through line for the things that I'm interested in is that women are at the center of that and supporting women, empowering women is at the center of that. So the first thing that you have to do when you're trying to figure out your personal branding is to understand your why. Why are you doing this? Why are you showing up? Once you figure out that part, everything else becomes easier.
Yeah, that is so helpful to hear. People want you to be you on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be this professional buttoned up
Yep.
version, but it's finding the through line of all the things that make you you. Because yes, we are multidimensional
Yes.
people, but it's really understanding who are the people I can really help, who are the people I can really serve, and what are the parts of me that my experience, my story, personally and professionally, can serve these people. And so it becomes, instead of all these options of things I could be talking about, you start honing in and you start conversing and you start engaging. And it sounds like it makes it easier to then think of, okay, like now people are looking to me to talk about this, or I found some energy here. So it seems like it's a lot of experimentation and a lot of discovery when you first start posting on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up is how to start, right? Because a lot of people think like out the gate, you got to have it all figured out before you start posting. But I always say that there's power in doing, right? You're not going to figure out your voice until you actually start posting and start kind of seeing what's resonating with the audience, how you feel putting that content out. Because sometimes you might be like, hey, I want to put something out, but it doesn't feel authentic. So you might have to do like a pivot, that sort of thing. But you're not going to have, and I mean, listen, there's a million personal branding strategists that are out there that will tell you differently, I'm sure, and you can pay a ton of money for those people to give you a brand, to start off with. But in my experience, it's always best to start that journey on your own first, that journey of self-discovery, whether it's journaling, whether it's sort of, maybe taking some feedback from friends and family of like how you're showing up, maybe even some of your colleagues, maybe that if you're working, to kind of find out what it is that makes you special and what makes you a little bit different and how to share that. Once you figure that part out, just start posting. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, it's not going to go viral the first one. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes, you might go viral the first time, right? Which is amazing if that happens. But, 9 times out of 10, you just got to just put yourself out there, throw yourself in the deep end and just start creating content out there. And then you will learn what makes sense for you. Because at the end of the day, you can't be like anybody else but yourself.
Yeah, and the world doesn't want that from you. They don't want you to put on a LinkedIn face to show up on LinkedIn. They just want Trish as Trish. They would just want praise as praise and to show up on this different platform.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think it's hard though, because social media is such, they say, comparison is a thief of joy. And, a lot of us do that. If you're on all the social platforms, the ones that I'm specifically on are on LinkedIn, IG, and TikTok, where I'm constantly consuming content. I'm a consumer, which, that's a whole other story. But I consume content. So I'm paying attention to what people are doing. I'm looking at trends. I'm looking at things that are resonating with audiences across social media. And so a lot of people don't realize that if they try to replicate something that someone else is doing, it's not going to work because one, you're not that person and you're you, right? So you have to sort of find your own lane that makes sense for you. If you like doing videos as opposed to writing, then shoot videos. You don't have to feel like you have to write this amazing post that really resonates, because you're like, yeah, I want people to think that I'm super smart. Like, don't do that. But then on the contrary, if you are a writer and you're like, the worst thing for me would be to get on camera, then write, stick with what makes sense for you. You don't have to be anybody else but yourself.
And I love that you give people permission to have self-awareness, but also ask trusted people in their lives, friends, family, colleagues to one, what is the thing that you want me to talk more about? What are you always curious about? What I have knowledge on? And then even asking them these things. Do you think I translate well on video? Do you like my style of writing? And just when a trusted person can give you that feedback, actually you shine on video. That can help you feel more solidified in your choice of okay, let me experiment with this. But again, you're giving permission, try it out and then change it if you don't like it. Change it if it doesn't work. Change it if it doesn't feel good. What have you found for Trish? How has your discovery as you've been training cohorts of women, but then you started posting on LinkedIn? Because you use the LinkedIn platform in so many cool ways. What are the areas that you have found are your sweet spots? Can you let us in on your secrets and frameworks of, y'all, you need to, we will link it in all the show notes. We'll link it in the Facebook group. This woman is active. Please be inspired by her work. But yeah, what are your secrets? What are your frameworks? How are you using the platform?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for that. Because most days I don't feel like that. I know, right? Fun fact. Well, so here's the thing. When I'm working with women's organizations, I always say you should have a strategy. You really should. You should have a strategy for how you show up, not only on LinkedIn, but on social media in general. And for busy women, busy founders, busy executives, what that looks like for you is sort of sitting down, taking a Saturday, take a couple hours and kind of sit down and kind of think about what does my next month look like? If you're traveling for work, you got conferences, you've got, maybe something, if you are a parent, you have things that are going on with your child. Maybe you're taking a leadership course. Maybe you're a leader yourself. Think about some of those things that you can share and write from that space. Now, with that said, I don't do any of that.
Easier to give advice than take it. I get it.
It is. But I will say that I know my why, right? And for me, it's easier to share authentically on the fly. So for instance, throughout the week or whatever, I go to several events, out and about or whatever. We watch TV, we read things, that sort of thing. I'm always taking notes in my phone. So I keep my notes app open and something sometimes will spark oh, I should talk about that. you know. Now it almost always aligns to, the through line of empowering women and how to show up and inspiring women. So I make notes. And so from that, that's how I create my content authentically. Sometimes that for me is just getting on my phone, recording a video. That's easy for me to do. And then other times I write, but I only do short posts. I am not a long post writer. I have a degree in broadcast journalism, but I'm much, much better like on camera, and also too, I come from a news background where it's about writing short and concise. So I don't have that experience of writing long prose. There are other people on the platform that do it much, much better than I do, but I don't have that. One, I'm bored. My attention span, I'm out the door already. So I get to the point. I keep it short and sweet, get to the point, or I'm on video. That's what works for me. The type of content that I share, I try to share things that are inspiring. I try to talk about personal branding. I also talk about the events that I go to, because most of them usually ladder up to empowering, or, I work with a lot of founders or people in the venture capital space. I talk a little bit about that too. I also love fashion. So I don't talk about fashion, but I always show, like, if I go to an event, I'm like, here's my outfit. People are like, oh my God, love that you shared like your outfit. I'm like, well, yeah, it's like a huge part of who I am is how I show up, with my style and everything like that. So that's all part of it. So that's how I look at my content and kind of share it. I try to share about 3 to 4 times a week. And like everybody else, I'm human. I've had like a week. I wouldn't say maybe like a month ago. I had like a week that I was like, I'm not sharing anything, because I literally didn't think I had anything to say. I was like, I have nothing to say. So I'm good, you know? But I was back in the saddle, the following week, so I give myself grace during those times where I'm like, if I don't have anything authentic to say, I'm not just going to share anything just to share it. So, yeah.
So you're saying leave space for humanity. Have a
Yeah.
strategy if you want to. Also, it's
Yeah.
okay to post on the fly. Also,
Yeah.
it's okay to take a break. Oh, look, and she's still showing up.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
I love
Yes.
this version of just like kind of go with the flow. And also the notes app. Like there is so much wisdom of just like in the moment. You don't need to open the LinkedIn app directly, but just start jotting down thoughts. You went to this event. What was your thought about it? You had this conversation. What was your thought about it too? And you said something so good. We call those pillars, right? We tell
Yep.
folks to have 3 or 4 things that you want to be
Yep.
known for, right? So personal branding, LinkedIn, fashion, like these are some of Trish's top things working with women of color. And you'll see her repeat those and have different thoughts about them on and
Yep.
off. But there's also like things happening in pop culture that
Yeah.
you can also like, how does that relate to some of the 4 topics I think of? Or how can I make that more? You said something so good. Oftentimes posts that are inspirational,
Mhm.
posts that are educational where you're sharing your wisdom. Are there other kind of thought categories you like to
Mhm.
think about your posts in?
Yeah, for sure. I think trending topics is always a really big one, to talk about what's happening right now that, may impact all of us or maybe a certain group of people. As we talk today, I mean, we know that the hurricane is top of mind for a lot of people in Florida. We also know that there is an election coming up. We also have seen different things that are happening, like from a tax perspective, So I say when you talk about trending topics, if you feel like you're an expert or you have something to weigh in on a topic that's trending, definitely do so. I personally don't do it a lot, only because there isn't a ton of things that I'm usually like, oh yeah, I'll talk about that. However, Fearless Fund, which was the fund that was supporting Black women and giving Black women funding for their businesses, they had come under attack last year. The case just ended recently. So I remember I did do a post about that earlier this year, because it made sense. Because again, empowering women, and I talked to a lot of founders and trying to find funding. So that made sense. That was a trending topic. Another thing that I've talked about, I did do a post about World Mental Health Day. That felt real to me. I try to sort of, if I'm going to talk about something that's pop culture that's resonating to me, it needs to feel like, okay, yeah, I makes sense for me to talk about it. I know that some people talk a lot about the different topics that may be happening in social media. And if you're knowledgeable about it, go for it for sure. But I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself to always weighing in, But if there's something happening that you feel strongly about, yeah, definitely weigh in. Share your thoughts on it. It might get shared a bit more on LinkedIn because of the news cycle and everything like that. They do have like that news trending topics if you're on your home page, is on the right-hand side of your page, and you can see that. Other things that I tell people to talk about is talk about, what's happening in their day, whether it be your day in the life. I know that type of content works well for some people. It's depending on how their lives are going. If you're a person who is always on the go, you're always on a plane, you're always going to a conference, you're always on a speaker panel or something like that, sometimes that's great for somebody to do that because people want to know, right? They're curious. They're like, oh my God, oh, so you're flying to Canada. So cool. So if you're one of those people, then yes, create that content. And I think people, you can either do that with pictures or video. People love a good story, right? The other thing I say that people can talk about is talk about who you are as a person. And a lot of that looks different for everybody. You can share as much or as little as you like. I follow people on LinkedIn who share everything. They talk about the fact that, yeah, as no shade, no shade. That's not true for me. Like, I don't share everything, but there are people who talk about, the fact that, hey, I'm pregnant and, this is what's going on with my pregnancy. And, oh, I was talking to my husband the other night, or there have been posts on LinkedIn that have gone viral. I know like a couple months ago, there was a guy on there who talked about the fact, I think he worked, I want to say either at Google or Microsoft or something like that. Anyway, he did a post about the fact that his boss, his manager, was having an affair with his wife and he found out. And I mean, listen, did the post go viral? It sure did, because it was juicy. You know, it even made it over to X. Like, people were talking about it on X. Like, it was crazy. So there are levels to the sharing. There's levels to that, I'm not saying that you have to talk about that, but there was another woman last year who, one of her posts, she's a leadership coach. She's amazing. Her posts do well on LinkedIn. And she put out a post saying that the woman that is apparently her husband had been cheating with messaged her on LinkedIn. And people were like, oh my God, tell me everything. It went viral. So I'm not going to do that. But, it's whatever that's true for you, So share a little about who you are, whether it's where you grew up, maybe what it was like during your first job, or maybe, talk about the fact that you're starting a new job and you're not really sure, you're kind of scared, or, moving to a new city and starting over again and what that means, because what connects all of us is our stories and our humanity. And none of us are alone. Sometimes we may feel like we're alone, but none of us are truly alone if we share our stories, because you can always find someone else who can be like, you know what, that was me, or I'm there right now, So those are a few things. And we've talked about inspiration. You can inspire people as well, and I think the other piece of that too is really tied to what it is that you do for a living. And maybe it is not what you do for a living, because we know that there are people who work 9 to 5s and they're also entrepreneurs. You're wearing many hats. You're a mom, you're a dad, whatever the case may be. But you can kind of decide how you show up, whether you're talking about leadership, whether you're talking about, what it means to be a woman of color in corporate, what it means to start your own business. There are women on the platform who talk about the journey of starting their own business from scratch. And it's fascinating because there's so many people who are doing the same things. And, one of the women I think of, her name is Erin. I can't think of her last name, but she started Black Chat GPT, and she shares the entire journey from how she started. She moved to DC every day she's sharing like, here's what happened, guys. I like got a speaking engagement and thank God they paid me because that money is now going to fund, this next part of my product launch, and she does really well with it, because people can relate and they want to learn more and they're excited for her journey, so when you're sharing again on LinkedIn or other platforms, you really should sort of kind of go back to your why, but also to think about some of the things that you can share that's easy for you, relatively easy. If you are not a finance person, then you don't need to talk about finance. You don't. So, talk about what it'll make your life so much easier.
Yeah, that is what you were saying before. Okay, yes, there are relevant events in the world. Don't feel pressured to answer every one of them or respond to your thoughts about every one of them. Don't feel like there might be trending topics. If it's not in your niche, don't feel pressured to talk about them either.
Right.
Find the stuff that's easy. I love that word. Why can't things be easy and fun? Ways that people can relate to your human experience is what I've heard from your stories too that really make a difference. We've been talking a lot about sharing and using our voice, but it's also about engagement too. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to listen on the platform, to leave comments on the platform, and how that affects our personal branding as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, personal branding, yes, is all about you, but it's also about building community and building those connections that could potentially, have a long-term impact on your brand and business. And that starts by engaging on the platform. So sometimes people are like, what the heck is engaging? Well, engaging means that you're commenting on other people's posts. You are leaving meaningful comments. So not just saying like, oh, that's great, but saying, oh, I really enjoy, what you shared in your podcast about X, Y, and Z, thank you for sharing, wherever the case may be. So if someone comments on your post, you just put out a post on LinkedIn. If someone comments on it, you should respond back to that comment because there's nothing ruder than not responding to a comment. And then, people are giving you their time. So you want to make sure that you respond to the comments thoughtfully. Then you should go to their page, see if they posted something, and then comment on that. That's how you build your network. That's how you grow on the platform. And it's actually, I would say, one of the most important things you can do to grow on LinkedIn and to get visibility on your profile. If you're just posting without commenting on other people's stuff in your network and beyond, the algorithm is not going to push your content. It's just not. So I say, what I would suggest is if you post something, obviously respond to comments, but maybe make a goal for yourself. Like, okay, I'm going to use like this next 30 minutes and I'm going to comment and engage on 20 people's posts, or 15 people's posts, whatever makes sense for you in your time. And you will notice a difference. You will notice that the engagement on your profile goes up. So you'll get more profile views, which if you're looking for work or looking for new opportunities, more eyeballs on your profile is a win, right? If you are looking for, potential partnerships with your business, more eyeballs on you and your business is a win. And the only way you do that is by engaging on the platform. And I will also say is only use 3 to 5 hashtags on each post. Don't do anything more. It's too much. You don't have to use hashtags. They used to be prioritized up until about 8 months ago, but they stopped on the platform. So they really don't, they're not like a huge thing anymore. However, myself and a lot of other people still use hashtags because it's just, that's what you do. Like, for instance, like today, the post that I did on World Mental Health Day, I put hashtag World Mental Health Day. Why? Because that signals to everybody else, okay, I know exactly what this post is all about. So if I'm talking about personal branding, I put hashtag personal branding. So, you don't have to use hashtags, but I think it's a good way to sort of tag your content so that people are aware. The other thing is that what I think a lot of people forget when you're on social media, whether it be LinkedIn or beyond, is that you're optimizing for human behavior. End of story. So if you think about it, we're all on our phones. We're all scrolling on a day-to-day basis, right? Just scrolling. What's going to make me stop and look at your content and, leave a comment? What's the defining factor? It's how you told your story. Maybe it's a great picture. Maybe it's a great video. Maybe it's the length of your post. I'm going to tell people now, and I've told people to their face, I'm like, that's a great post, but I'm not reading all that. I'm not. I'm going to tell you straight up, and a lot of people are like that. So you might have me for like the first 2 paragraphs and then I'm out, but there are other people who love reading the long posts and everything like that, so consider that when you're creating your content too. It's like, who is reading this content and how are they going to feel when they read my content? What are they going to think when they read my content? And that helps you to show up authentically, because again, there's no point in you trying to write a dissertation if that's not who you are. It's just, so at a very, very basic level, you want to remember that you're optimizing for human behavior and that you are human and you should share accordingly.
Wow, we're human. Riveting thought. Riveting thought.
Yeah.
And we're speaking to other humans. Remember to write and create the things that you want to read. Like that, it just seems like a simple way to put it too. There is something about LinkedIn that's special that does set it apart from a few other platforms. Ones I can think of is LinkedIn Top Voices and LinkedIn Newsletters. Could you highlight a little bit about that and what makes those special and how that could serve someone who's building their thought servant leadership and building a personal brand?
Yeah, for sure. LinkedIn Newsletter is a really great way to grow your personal brand and your business or both. If you have a topic that you want to talk about, a newsletter is a really great way to do that consistently. It is, from what I've seen, my experience that I've seen on the platform is that it usually works for people who have a lot of knowledge on a specific topic. So let's say like leadership. Let's say D&I, how to build a business. And I've seen that across many industries, right? There's like people who are tax people who write about what you should be doing with your taxes. And that newsletter is great. People love it, because it's informative. So if you can think about a topic that you can talk about all day, every day, and that can be helpful to someone, then yes, start a newsletter. The other thing that I've seen with newsletters is that for some reason, press like really latches on to newsletters. So I've noticed that some people in my cohort previously would get like Forbes would reach out, Insider would be like, hey, I've read your newsletter on X, Y, and Z. Would you mind commenting on this particular story? And I think it's just a theory that it's because you're writing this long type of information. And so people get like a snapshot, one, of who you are, and you really get to see your expertise. So, people are like, okay, well, this person's obviously an expert in this particular thing. I'm going to reach out to them to speak about this. And that's worked really well for a lot of professionals and for founders, entrepreneurs, and everything like that. I will say the only caveat with LinkedIn newsletter is that it is not monetized. So, and they have not done that. So a little cheat sheet that I tell people is that if you have a newsletter already, maybe you have a newsletter that's on your website or on, another platform, Substack, Beehive, or something like that, just copy and paste it into LinkedIn News, give it another name if you want, or keep the same name. Because it is a different audience, right? So you can still do that. No point in doing double work. No one has time for that. So copy and paste, maybe make a couple of small tweaks for the audience, ask a question at the end, and you're done, but it does not monetize. So that's that. The other thing for LinkedIn Top Voice. So there's a couple of things that are changing on Top Voice. So there's Top Voice with the blue badge. That is the historical one that's been around forever. And then there's the Top Voice with the yellow badge. That one is subject matter. The yellow badge is subject matter top voice. So let's say top voice in leadership, that sort of thing. That one just started because you were able to comment on collaborative articles. Now, The tricky part is that that's going to be ending by the end of the year, probably by mid-December. That's going to be ending. They will no longer have those opportunities for you to get the yellow badge in a subject matter. So now to be a top voice on LinkedIn, getting the blue badge, you need to be putting out content like every day. You need in your subject matter, and it needs to be engaging content. You need to be seen as an expert in your area of in your industry, basically. So I personally do not have an aspiration to be a LinkedIn top voice. I do not. However, for some people, that's a really important thing, not only for their business, but maybe for, their professional lives. It is an important badge of honor, if you will. So I would say if you want to be a LinkedIn top voice, you need to be sharing content every day. And when I say every day, you can do Monday through Friday, throw in a weekend if you want. But it needs to be content that is full of knowledge and information. People are engaging with it. You're engaging across the platform. And every now and then throw in some trending topics in there too that aligns with your expertise. So from what I've seen, and also to, obviously working at LinkedIn and knowing some of those top voices, from what I've seen, those people have been the ones that have earned those blue badges, are people who are consistent with their messaging and their brand. And I've seen it across industries. And that's really the only way to get the top voice badge. There's no form you're going to fill out. There is no form. They find you, you don't find them, they find you. And however, it is through LinkedIn editorials team, which is a team that I was a part of. So you want to maybe follow some of the people who are LinkedIn editorial, just saying. Follow some of them, maybe tag them, maybe tag one or two of them in your posts. If you're like, hey, I'm doing a trending topic, today's trending topic, oh, Wall Street's doing XYZ. I'm a finance person. I just did this post. Tag them. I always say closed mouth don't get fed. Everybody says that, but it's true. So if that's what you want, tag the people who could actually get you to that next level, but it all starts with you creating content that is really good content,
Yeah. What I'm hearing from you is it's all in stages. We have this discovery phase first. Figure out what people want you to talk about, what you have fun talking about, and experiment with mediums, video, long form, short form, and just get comfortable. And then the second phase, like get responses from friends and family, get feedback a little bit, what they like, what they want to hear from you. Also start engaging, start commenting, start writing back. When you post something, make sure you're also, we call this don't ghost and post. We don't post and ghost. Like we don't want you to say something and then just leave. We want you to be on the platform and also create meaningful community. Again, it's humans doing humanity together. And then if you want to get more advanced, have a newsletter. That's where you can really, if we have our long form writers out there, this is where you can publish something that's like more indexed, searchable. And I think it also shows up in people's inboxes because I also get these newsletters too. So it's kind of a fun bonus, but I loved your hack. If you're already on an email platform, already setting these, copy and paste, adjust a little bit, and reinterpret it for this platform. We are about repurposing. We want to do things efficiently and smart. And then we can keep on leveling up. You can continue. You start loving this. You like posting every day. You know how to inspire and create educational content. Now, this is why we have you on the Personal Brand Summit. As someone who used to be on LinkedIn editorial, she's like, yo, people, you can follow people on LinkedIn editorial because they are the mysterious they who help award that blue check of LinkedIn top voices. I feel like those are such good hacks. These are such good ways to put this all together. I feel like for our folks who are building personal brands and really building this thought servant leadership, this will really help them kick it up to the next level. And we also have, Trish was really generous and shared a deck for those who are like, wait, what do I even put on my profile? What is a headline? We have some information that we're going to share in our Facebook group and over email that Trish is, again, so generous of showing us what it's like to create content and share it and give it. So we'll share that on the platform too. How can people find you online? I know they're going to want to connect with you. They're going to want to hire you. How can people find you, Trish?
Yeah, for sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn, just Trish Lindo, super easy to find. And you can also go to my website, trishlindo.com. I'm also on Instagram if you so choose, Trish Lindo Style. You can see a little bit more of my fashion there. So just a little, little slight flex. And yeah, you can find me on those platforms. The easiest way though is LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn, so people message me and, I message back. I'm also a community builder. So, I love attending events and, being on panels and that sort of thing and moderating panels as well through community. And a lot of those opportunities have come to me through community. So sometimes if I can't do it, I connect other people. I'm like, hey, you actually should talk to this person. I think they'll be great for it. I'm always happy to share, with people if if I'm not knowledgeable or know, I'm happy to pass other people's names on. Um, I think it's just goodwill too, just why not? So I definitely like for people to reach out and share. I work with a lot of women's organizations as well. So if you're a part of a women's organization and you would like for someone to do presentations, talking to them about how they show up, personal branding or LinkedIn and that sort of thing, then yes, definitely reach out to me.
Which this is even a testament of itself. I posted on LinkedIn saying, hey, visibility opportunity. I'm gathering some of the best minds about personal branding. And someone recommended Trish. And so this is also the power of putting yourself out there, being known for a topic or a niche, and you are a leader in that niche. And this is community. So we're really glad of how this all worked out. Trish, thank you for your time and being so generous with us. I know our folks will love to connect with you and learn from you and also watch her lives, her own podcast too. So please
Yeah.
connect with Trish.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Praise. This has been really great conversation and love building community with you. So this was really great. And I look forward to meeting a lot of you out there, on LinkedIn. Reach out if you have questions. I'm definitely not a gatekeeper. People reach out to me all the time and ask questions, and I'm happy to respond. It's like, yeah, sure, do this, that sort of thing. So I'm happy to support. And then, yeah, to your point, Praise, I do have a live show that I do every Thursday called Too Ambitious, where I talk to Black women and women of color founders about their entrepreneur journey. So every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern.
So many people are going to connect with you. Thanks, Trish.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
yeah. Thank you, Praise.